Hello, English 1010 students. This is Miss Mart coming to you from my living room floor to help you with a little mini lecture so that you may be successful on Quiz 2. Now, as you may already know, Quiz 2, or you should already know, Quiz 2 covers the essay Shooting an Elephant by George Orwell and Invention in Chapter 2, which is Invention of your essay. Okay, so let's just look at the questions on quiz number 2. I have them right here. Quiz number 2, one of the questions that we're going to need to, let's just knock out Invention right now because there are 2 questions on quiz 2 in relation to the chapter on Invention. So I'm going to tell you exactly where to find these answers. Okay, keep in mind that I have emailed you PDFs of everything you need to be successful with this quiz. So there should be no Miss Mart. I don't have a textbook. I can't get my textbook until next week because I made sure to email you Chapter 2, which is on Quiz 2, and Shooting an Elephant. So the first 2 weeks of all of your readings have been emailed to you in PDFs. So if you do not have your textbook, you will be looking on your PDF and turning to page, let's see what the first question is. Define expressive writing in Chapter 2. So you will find your PDF. I would look around page 28, or it might be almost exactly page 28. So let's see. If you're looking on your PDF, you're in your college patterns textbook, Patterns for College Writing. Let's just look over on page 28. Oh my goodness, I found the exact answer I was looking for question number 1 on the quiz. Do you see this right here at the bottom of page 28? Can you see that? Okay, right there in bold is the exact answer to question number 1 of quiz 2 as it defines expressive writing. Okay? Guys, it doesn't get any easier than this. Okay? All right, now let's look at question number 2. Question number 2 on quiz 2 says that you should be explaining what is meant by the following statement that you'll see on page 30 of your Patterns textbook. Different writing situations require different kinds of knowledge. Now, let's go over on page 30 and see what is meant. What do you mean different kinds of knowledge? I only have one brain. It only has one kind of knowledge. That is not true. Your brain has all different kinds of knowledge. And when you're writing for different situations, you're going to pull from all that different kind of knowledge. It's kind of like code switching. Okay, you know, you talk a certain way around your friends, and then you talk a certain way, say if you were in a job interview, or you were in a professional setting situation, or you were giving a presentation in Miss Mart's English 1010 class, you would kind of code switch to that more professional speak, right? Well, when you're writing for different situations, let's read what it says. I'm going to read to you the answer to question number 2. It says, different writing situations require different kinds of knowledge. A personal essay will draw on your experiences and observations. An argumentative essay often requires you to do research. In many cases, your page limit and the amount of time you have to do the assignment will help you decide how much information you need to gather before you begin. Okay, right now you're writing your narrative essay. So you may be mining. Remember we talked about mining, just like a miner mines a mine for diamonds, right? So you're mining your little brain or your big brain for a diamond. And it may be in the rough right now because you're roughing out your narrative essay, but you're going to polish it and polish it. You're going to continue to write and revise until you have made this rough diamond be a beautiful, polished, shiny, gorgeous diamond to present to Miss Mart. That will be your narrative essay. But you may notice when we move on into argumentative essays that the voice that you used, the language that you used, and the tone that you used in telling your own personal story is going to be more casual. It's going to be more different than the professional tone or the more academic tone and academic language that you'll take with an argumentative essay or a persuasive essay. So there's going to be a difference in as your book says, in the writing situations that require different kinds of knowledge, there's going to be a difference in your tone, in your voice, in your word choice when you're writing a narrative essay as opposed to writing a more formal academic paper. Okay? So I hope that helps you structure your answer in a nice paragraph, not 2 sentences, on quiz 2. Okay, now moving on to shooting an elephant. As some of you may already know, I've already posted a couple of really good videos that I borrowed from YouTube that will give you some background information on George Orwell's Shooting an Elephant, and that will hopefully get, if you can understand what the circumstances were while George Orwell was explaining this story, then you should be a little bit more grounded in the story or the essay. It's not a story, it's an essay. Story might indicate it's not true. Essay indicates this is a true narrative. So you may be, you need that background information to be a little bit more grounded in understanding George Orwell's Shooting an Elephant. Now, on one of the videos that I've posted on Pause, it talks about, this is a class where the professor is teaching both George Orwell's novel 1984 and also teaching his essay Shooting an Elephant. So don't be confused and think that 1984 is a really awesome time in our history because the 80s were super cool. But that is actually the title of one of George Orwell's novels. Okay, so moving on. Your essay, or pardon me, your quiz says, question number 3, why is Orwell hated by a large number of people in Burma? Why does he have mixed feelings toward the Burmese people? Okay, well, whenever you're trying to find the answer, here I am in your textbook. And whenever you're trying to find the answer, it helps if, number 1, you read the essay as I did. Can you see all my notes and my highlights? Or you read the PDF and you've given some thought. You've let this marinate a little while and you've given some thought to this important essay. But if you haven't read it, you will notice that there's some background information right here, which kind of sets up the essay. And also there's background information in the other 2 videos that I posted for you on Pause. But if you will turn to page, or on your PDF or your textbook, if you'll turn to page 131, George Orwell says, in Lower Burma, I was hated by large numbers of people, the only time in my life that I have been important enough for this to happen to me. Okay, and then he discusses his thoughts on imperialism and the British rule over Burma, which he disagrees with. He says over on page 132 that he had already made up his mind that the British being in Burma and enforcing their rule over them and imperialism in Burma was a bad thing, that it was an evil thing, and that the British people, they've been in rule at this point for, I think, almost 100 years that they've ruled over Burma, that the British people never should have come there in the first place, that they should not be exploiting the Burmese people. They should not be exploiting their resources. They should not be running them into starvation because they're taking all the resources, the British people, and that they really should leave the Burmese people to run their own lives in their own nation, right? Okay, so what George Orwell says on page 132 is, I had already made up my mind that imperialism was an evil thing, and the sooner I chucked up my job and got out of it, the better. Okay, so George Orwell has been stationed. He is a very young, I think maybe 19, in his early 20s police officer at the time that this essay has been written. And he has been stationed. He's been sent from Great Britain to Burma, and he's stationed there to keep order among the Burmese people. Well, this puts him in a very awkward situation because he feels for the Burmese people, and he feels like that imperialism should not be there, that the British should pull out and leave these people to their own country and let them have their resources and let them have their own lives and let them have their own way of life, and that the British should get out. With that, which imperialism does eventually end in Burma. But at this point, George Orwell is there, and the Burmese people have come to hate the British because they've been put in jail. They've been tortured. They've been kept in cages. They've watched the British exploit their country, exploit their resources while they starve. So they literally hate British rule, and they hate anything to do with the British. Now, George Orwell actually feels for the Burmese people, but the Burmese people don't care, and they don't know this really because they just see the uniform. They just see that George Orwell is one of them that has brought the evil imperialism into their country. Okay? So, but George Orwell secretly, he hurts for these people and he feels for them, but they are very abusive to him, as you will see in the essay that you read surely already. They are very abusive to George Orwell, not because it's just a personal thing, but because he represents the British, and he's been here, placed here as a police officer to enforce the British rule over them. Okay? So, he says that he is stuck between, and I'm reading straight from page 132. All I knew was that I was stuck between my hatred of the empire, his own empire, the British Empire, that I served, and my rage against the evil-spirited little beast who tried to make my job impossible. Now, I'm going to shake all the mystery out of this by telling you who the evil-spirited little beast are, Burmese people. But I'm going to let you read that for yourself. The Burmese people are not really evil-spirited little beasts. They're behaving this way to George Orwell. So he's secretly harboring empathy for these people while they're being very abusive to him. So he's in conflict between hating British rule, but also feeling some hatred to the Burmese people for the way they're treating them, because he's over here screaming out, I'm on your side, but he can only scream that out on the inside because he can't very well betray the British Empire and keep his job and tell the Burmese people, hey guys, it sucks that we're here. I want to go too. I'm on your side. He can't do that. So this puts him in a very difficult situation of hating both the Burmese people and hating his own empire. But hating the Burmese people, not because they're Burmese, but because of the way they treat him. Does this make sense? I would say, does this make sense in class? And you would say yes. So hopefully 24 of you are nodding your head saying yes right now. Okay, so that should get you to the answer of number one, why Orwell was hated by large numbers of people and why he has mixed feelings toward the Burmese people. All right, the essay, now this is very interesting because George Orwell structures his essay, and this is question number 4, with almost no dialogue. And I think that any of it is in there will be his, right? But there's almost no dialogue whatsoever. And the question is, why do you think Orwell's voice as narrator is the only one that readers hear? And is the absence of dialogue a strength or weakness? Explain. Now, you can't really get, did I say get? You can't really get, it's that southern accent. You can't really get the second part of this question wrong because it's asking you your opinion. Is the absence of dialogue a strength or a weakness? Guys, it's your opinion, okay? Be thoughtful. Say your opinion about that. You've read the story, right? Okay, so first of all, what happens when you only hear one side of the story and that person is like super, super compelling and they tell you a story that just reeks of hardship on their end, and they tell it in such a emotional way that you begin to feel for that person, right? So, okay, so when you only hear one side of a story, say that there's two people in conflict and you hear only one side of the story, and that person makes you feel empathy for them and helps you see their side of the story first, what happens when you hear the other side of the story? The deck is already stacked against that person, right? But in Shooting an Elephant, we don't even hear from the Burmese people. We only hear from George Orwell. So we see George Orwell in having almost no dialogue, so we don't hear what the Burmese people are saying, and in only giving us his thoughts and only giving us his perspective. We literally are seeing the whole situation in the Shooting of the Elephant only through George Orwell's eyes. So we are 100% in his perspective, which is what he wanted, because he felt like he had an important story to tell. Now, however, if he included some dialogue from the Burmese people, or he gave a nod to the opposition so we could see what the Burmese people were thinking, which he kind of does a teeny tiny bit in showing you how they were mistreated too and how they were tortured, but he doesn't really let you see the Burmese people's perspective per se when he has to murder this elephant in this very horrible way. He wants you to only see it from his point of view and his perspective, because it was damaging to him, not the Burmese people. So he wants you to feel how horrible it was to him to kill an elephant, which he didn't feel like was right to do. Because if you'll look over on page 134, you can see that as we're starting out, where he's chasing the elephant who has gone must or gone rogue, he says, "As soon as I saw the elephant, I knew with perfect certainty that I ought not to shoot him." And then when he kills the elephant, figures out just how hard it is to kill an elephant. This elephant takes a long time to suffer miserably and die horribly, because George Orwell's really not that great at shooting and killing elephants. He says that the only reason he did it, if you'll look at the very last line, and this is what makes the essay so powerful, is because he puts this as the very last line, like it's that killer, like, whoosh, get you. In the last line, he says, "I had done it solely to avoid looking like a fool." So, and back to the question of Orwell's putting you in his voice and his perspective. He wants you to feel this horror that he felt when he was having to kill this elephant that he describes as innocent. That he looks out there and the elephant has calmed down and it's so peaceful out there on the desert plain, and he says that the elephant is grandmotherly to him. So he wants you to not feel what the Burmese people are feeling, because they're like, kill it, kill it, kill it, all pushing their weight in on him to kill the elephant. Because if you listen to the Burmese people, they may say things like, "We're starving, we need the meat." Of course, it's a horrible thing to kill an elephant, but it's worse to die in this starvation. Like, we have to have this. We have to have this to survive. They could say things like that, but George Orwell doesn't want you to be in their mind, because this responsibility and this horrible thing to do was not put on the Burmese people. No, they were pushing him to do it. So he wants you to feel from his point of view, to feel what it was like to be in this moment and have to do this horrible thing. Okay, so that should get you to, and I've talked way longer than I meant to. I meant to keep this below 15 minutes, and we're already almost at 18. So, why do you think, now this is where I differ from a lot of people who have who theorize on George Orwell's elephant and shooting the elephant as a metaphor. Many say that the dying elephant and the misery that it's in is a metaphor for the slow death of imperialism in Burma. However, let's read the question. Why do you think Orwell devotes so much attention to the elephant's misery? Do you think this passage should come with a trigger warning? Now, I gave you a trigger warning on this passage. If you'll look up trigger warnings in your textbook, you can understand what a trigger warning is. But it's basically me giving you a warning that you're going to be reading sensitive material, and that it can produce anxiety in people who are prone to anxiety. It can make you feel some type of way, in other words. So I wanted to make you ready to read such a violent essay. So then this is, once again, your opinion. Do you think it was good that Miss Mark gave you a trigger warning before you read this essay? Or are you like, nah, I really don't think you should censor material, Miss Mark, and tell us what we're going to be facing when we're reading these essays? It's college. We need to grow up and understand that we're going to be reading tough stuff. Once again, you can't get this wrong because it's your opinion. Okay? Now, why do you think Orwell devotes so much time to the elephant's misery? This is where I kind of like divert from some scholarly opinion on George Orwell's just keeping us in this moment of misery of the dying elephant. As I've already said, many believe that, and the elephant's definitely a metaphor. metaphor. The dying elephant is a metaphor, but many people feel that it is meant to represent an oral story, the death, the very, very, very slow death of imperialism in Burma. However, Miss Smart, I believe that the slow dying elephant is a metaphor for Orwell himself and his situation in Burma. That where he is forced to do this horrible job and put on this mask of being a British official and have rule over the Burmese people, that he is in such misery that it's literally killing his soul. It's killing him on the inside. And I believe that the reason he devotes so much time to the elephant's suffering is because he wants the reader to see his own suffering as that, just like that of the dying elephant, where he's spent a long time here just feeling like he is dying. And it is a slow and miserable, painful death for George Orwell on the inside, just like it is for the elephant. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and until next time, bye.